Thank you for listening to The Family Business with Norv and Stephanie Turner. We wanted to let you know that the episode you're about to listen to was recorded before the start of the NFL season. We hope you enjoy the conversation.
Hey, y'all look official.
Well, we told you a little bit, Troy. This is our first time. You're our pilot episode. So we'll see how it goes.
Just wondering what took y'all so long. I mean, come on.
There was a time in those first couple of years in Dallas where fans weren't so sure about Troy Aikman as being their starting quarterback. Yeah. Isn't that right? Like, people were kind of like, who is this guy? And is he going to be our guy?
That's what happens when you go 0-11 as a starter your rookie year and your team wins one game. And, I know that we were the worst offense in football my second year. So things were, I didn't win a game my first year as a starter. Fortunately, won my first start my second year. So I got that out of the way. But our offense got worse. And so we did put together a little bit of a run, but offensively, we just simply were not good enough. And so, changes had to be made, and changes were being made. And I remember when when your dad, Norv, was being interviewed, Jimmy reached out to me. And initially, I was told that Ernie Zampese was interested in the job, and that he was the offensive coordinator, as you know, with the Rams, and Norv was a wide receivers coach. And I really liked what they were doing offensively. I had some UCLA teammates that had gone to the Rams, and so I followed that team pretty closely because of them. And just looking at their concepts, it was similar to what I did in college. So I was in favor of the system. And so if it was Ernie Zampese coming, I was all for. And then later I found out it wasn't Ernie, it was Norv. And Jimmy reached out and said, "Hey, I'd like for you to meet Norv when he comes in for the interview. Maybe spend a little time with him." So we went in the meeting room, and he went over kind of what his concepts were and what he wanted to do. And I really just had one question for him. I just said, "Is it going to be the same offense that I've been watching with the Rams?" And he said, "It's the exact same offense." So at that point, I was sold. I really couldn't tell you if I thought Norv was going to be great or any of that. I just knew that it was a system that I thought would fit me, and that it would give us a chance. I mean, I didn't think we couldn't possibly be any worse than we had been. So, Jimmy then reached out and said, "Hey, what do you think?" And I said, "I'm all for it. Let's sign it. Let's get him here." And then of course, the rest is history. I mean, shoot, he went on to change my career, Michael's, Emmett's, our entire team. I've said it so many times. As great as Jimmy was as our head coach, and that guy's important. I mean, he drafted the players. He had a great eye for talent. He set the tone each and every week. As great as Jimmy was, I do not believe we would have won one Super Bowl if we had hired anyone other than your father. So it worked out perfect. You all were building your house there in Capel when he signed, and it was being completed. So we would have these meetings, and then Norv would say, "Hey, just hop in with me. I got some errands to run, or going to go look at the house or whatever." So, we became, he was kind of like the big brother I never had pretty quickly, and we just bonded. And I think it was planned. I'll let Norv speak, but I think to develop a relationship and get to know me, and be allowed to get to know him. But there was a comfort level that was struck very quickly, and then of course the respect that I had for him and what he meant to me and what he meant to our teams was pretty apparent real early.
Well, we are not doing this to appreciate the nice things you say, but I think back to that meeting, and then I think back to obviously I was all in. That's my mentor, one of my mentors, as you mentioned him, Ernie Zampese. He always said, "If you want to be a good quarterback coach, you better go find a good quarterback." So that was the motive I had. And then, but I almost screwed it up before we ever got started. Troy had his shoulder operated on and was told he couldn't throw for 6 weeks or something. And we were going through all this plays on the board and looking at tape. And I said, "You want to go out and do some of the footwork stuff?"
In the interview when
no,
you met,
this is
this is
after the interview, after I was hired. So we went out, and I asked the head trainer, Kevin O'Neill. I said, "We're just going to do some footwork stuff. We're all right." And he can lob the ball around a little bit, yeah, but he's not supposed to throw. So we go out on the field. I don't know if you remember this. We're doing all this footwork stuff and drops and something that was very important to us in terms of that sense of urgency and all that. And I thought the assistant trainer was out there with us. He'd come out and the balls were out there and he was catching. And I said, "Is he all right? Is he doing all right?" He goes, "He looks good to me." And then Troy starts whipping the ball around pretty good. I mean, throwing it like he shouldn't. And I said, "Is he all right doing this?" "Oh, coach, he looks good to me." So we end it. And I go to Kevin O'Neill, the trainer. I said, "He was throwing it pretty good." He goes, "Yeah, I told you we didn't want him thrown." I said, "Well, I don't even remember his name."
He told me it was okay.
He says the other trainer said it was fine. He goes, "Trainer, he's the assistant equipment guy. What are you doing out there?" But he survived.
It was Mike McCord, probably.
He survived that workout issue. His hamstrings were a little tight from the drops. But
that's funny. What do you remember from? Obviously you had watched Troy play. What I guess was the most exciting thing to you, this relationship starting, you just get this job, you sort of dive in, you see who you have on offense, you start working with a young quarterback. Like what comes to mind for you with that?
Well, I saw Troy play being in LA. I saw Troy play numerous times on TV, UCLA, and then actually went to one of the games. We played them in '90 and when in Anaheim with the Rams, and it was one of the games they came back and beat us. And Troy had a big game, and Emmett had a long touchdown catch coming out of the backfield on an option route. So there was no question in my mind. I mean, he was when Troy was drafted, number one, people say he's the best quarterback in the last 10 years to come out. And those type of accolades, they get all excited. It was a no-brainer. So the ability we knew was there. And the thing I always say and will always continue to say is you got a really talented guy now. You got to get the people around him. You've got to get protection. You've got to tailor the system to the protection, to the guys you have, and then you got to get playmakers around them.
Troy, you mentioned like you guys just kind of became close in terms of like he was a big brother. What do you think that was? I think maybe it was the country music, but country music
there's
fans.
no doubt. There's no doubt country music. We cut meetings short sometimes, and sometimes our entire meeting was sitting in Norv's office, me and the other quarterbacks, and we'd watch CMT and the country music videos. So we're a lot alike in a lot of ways. We have a lot of similar interests, but I will say that, and I'm not different than any other player. I think at the end of the day, players, they want to get better. And if a coach can show them that they can make them a better player, then players are on board. So from the start, that's really what drove it initially, was me knowing that because, as you mentioned to start, I was going into my third year. We'd had some success at the end of my second year, but not much success. We hadn't been a playoff team and all that. And I remember in training camp that first year, and Norv came over while we were stretching, and it was his first year as a coordinator. And he mentioned something like, "Hey, this is going to take a little time. You got to be patient." And I told him, I said, "Norv, I understand it. I mean, I get it. It's your first year as a coordinator, but I'm kind of in the hot seat right now. You know what I mean? I got to win now." And fortunately we did. Fortunately, we got off to a good start for us, considering where we had been, and then we're a playoff team that first year. But So it started with the belief that I could become a better quarterback and we could become a better team. And then it just, it was kind of the cherry on the pie, I guess, the fact that we got along so well and became such close friends.
And Troy, from your, memory and from your perspective, did you notice, like, you had a new coach coming in with a new system that he was going to implement, right? Did you feel like, and just like you said, that was in a way kind of like a potential turning point for you, because you'd had 2 years and you felt like you were on the hot seat a little bit, like, okay, this is maybe a bit of a make or break. Like, I have to be the guy, or maybe I'm not going to be able to be the guy. So just thinking about some of the young guys in the league now, and that might be in that position, did you immediately identify, or can you remember things that you were like, oh, I have to do this differently, whether it was, in your preparation, in the way you practiced, or physical, like, do you have any like specific thing that comes to mind?
Not really. I really don't. And it's not, I'm not answering that, like, not that I can think of. I don't remember thinking that I needed to do it differently. Because I was highly motivated. I was throughout my life to try to be the best I could be, whatever that was. So as far as putting in the work or doing whatever was, I think I just needed some direction. I needed someone to just, there were things that, I felt like I was really well coached throughout my athletic career from the time I was young. I was one of the fortunate ones. I had really good coaching, and I was around a lot of really good people that were coaches. And so not everyone gets that. And I think it's why I continue to want to continue my athletic career and ultimately be a professional. But I just, there were things that we were doing my first couple of years that I just assumed that's the way it was, because the NFL is an entirely different, at least it was then, it's not so much now, but it was an entirely different game of football that was being played from what I was experiencing in college. And we had a good offense, we had a good system, I had good coaches and all that in college. But my first 2 years in Dallas, we were not real complicated. We weren't very sophisticated offensively. And I remember, we played the Eagles each year, twice, right? And Buddy Ryan had been there, and the 46 defense. And I remember we were getting ready to play him, and we had some strong side running plays. And not to get too technical, but I told Norv, I said, well, we can't run these. He goes, why can't we? I said, well, you can't run these into a Bear defense. He said, well, since when? And I said, well, that's the way the last 2 years we haven't been able to run strong side runs. So we checked out of every run, and we had 3 runs that we ran against that defense. And they knew what was coming after the first time we run them, you know? And so I just needed some direction, and our team needed some direction. And I understand, Barry Switzer would always say the game's won by the players. And obviously you got to have good players if you're going to be good. I understand that. But in the NFL, you got to have, in my opinion, if you're going to win the way we won, you got to have great players, but you got to have great coaches. This league is filled with really talented coaches. And if you're not one of the better teams that are with better coaches, you're going to have a hard time. I don't care how good your players are. So that's what Norv brought to us offensively. Our defense had always been pretty good. And then once we got the offense going a little bit, then we were able to start winning a lot of ball games.
Well, I think the thing, obviously your standards, that was the thing that hit me right away. Your standards were so high. But I think my feeling with the group was we had to raise expectations. It wasn't, and you can get caught up in that in Dallas, like a lot of these NFL teams, but it wasn't all right just to be one of the players. It wasn't all right just to go out there and go practice. We had to raise the expectations, and you obviously were big with that, and Michael was big with that, and the guys that people don't even think about that were leaders. I always think of Mark Tuinei, his level of play and his attitude about how we're going to go play. Stepnoski, hard to keep him happy, but Mark was something else. There was a group of guys that wanted to win, and I always go back to sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time. It was a great time for me to come in there because it was a talented group that was really hungry and felt like they had something to prove, and obviously went about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I was with Step the other day, and he's about 180 pounds right now, so he wouldn't block too many people these days.
Okay, so let's take a look at the league as it stands now, and first of all, I guess I can ask both of you just sort of off of that this conversation. How do you feel about the current state of quarterback development in the NFL? There's been this kind of commentary that teams are kind of failing, or coaches are failing young quarterbacks, failing to develop. What do you think? What's your take on that? Either one.
Well, I think it's an easy out, and obviously we just had a situation where Troy felt there could be improvements made in the coaching, and I'm sure there's young quarterbacks around the league that have that feeling right now. But I do believe that it's a two-way street. There's give and take, and I think the game. I'm going to contradict what you said. I think the game is still a lot different than college football. Schematically, it's not, but the level of competition is so much greater. The sense of urgency you have to have playing quarterback is so much greater. You watch some of these college games and the guy sits back there patting the ball in his hand for 5, 6, 7 seconds. It just that doesn't happen in the NFL. If it does, it happens very, very rarely. So that sense of understanding playing quarterback is different in the NFL than in college. And I think guys get tricked into thinking it's easy because they throw for 1 million yards in college. They can go through a game and not get hit, not get sacked. If you're at one of the elite schools, you play 12 games, 8 of them you're going to win by 28 to 35 points. So you're not in those critical situations throughout an entire game constantly. So training a quarterback to understand that situational football, taking care of the ball, getting the ball into your hand, the excessive sacks, those type of things, it's a process. It's really a process. And, there's no question some guys coach it better than others, but the player has to buy in. He has to be committed. And I think sometimes to get him to buy in, they have to go through those tough times. And that's just, kind of where I look at it.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, like Norv said, the situational part of football. I'm not certain that I didn't feel, even when I was playing, there was a lot of guys that understood it. I think it's less now, just because I don't think there's as much an emphasis on it. That playing quarterback, so many times all we talk about is the measurables. How fast he can run or throw and all that. And there's so much more to playing the position. There's so much that goes into whether or not someone's going to be successful. But as it relates to the player himself, I've always said that, playing with a 10-point lead is different from playing from a 4-point deficit, or who you're playing and how your defense is playing. And, there's a lot that goes into that. If you're up 6 points and you got a chance to kick a field goal and go up 2 scores and your defense is playing great, that means something, and you don't then play the position the same way as you do if you have to go score more points. And I think a lot of that is lost. What I see is quarterbacks that they get so many more reps. I always tell the story that my daughters, they played indoor soccer and outdoor soccer, and in the winter they played indoor, and the indoor game is a smaller field, and so they get more touches on the ball, and so their ball skills with their feet got better. Mm-hmm. And then it translated then when they went out and they played on outdoor soccer. But these quarterbacks today, they're getting so many more reps than I ever did. And they're playing in these 7-on-7 leagues. They're playing year round. A lot of these high school kids, they only play one sport, so they're playing a lot of football even before they get to college. But they really haven't learned the little nuances as to how do you win a football game. The reason Tom Brady won so many games, one, he was a good player, of course, but he had good players around him, but he knew how to win. Mm-hmm. And there's something to be said for that. And so now we look at all these off-schedule plays, and they say, well, you got to be able to do this, you got to be able to do that. I still think there's a job for Peyton Manning in his prime. Mm-hmm. I still think there's a job for Tom Brady and Drew Brees and guys that weren't necessarily all that athletic. But we lose sight of that. So I broadcast the games. I'm a believer, and it's because of my background with your dad that I believe the ball's got to come out. And I just don't see that enough. So at some levels, the game is frustrating to me. But there's a lot of really great players that are playing it, and they are doing some amazing things. But I don't know if the structure within the system is what it once was because of how it had to be. Because there were guys like Dan Marino and Elway could run around, but he was still more of a pocket passer. Jim Kelly, Warren Moon, all of us, we were all more pocket passers. Bernie Kosar. And now I hear people say, well, you got to be athletic. You got to be able to run around. I don't know that you have to. I think if you've got a system to where you're not getting people open or receivers aren't running routes with consistency, then it helps to have someone who can move, and do those things. But the game is different, and the quarterback position is being played a little differently than what it was back when I was playing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something like my dad and I were just talking about. Something that I always, having watched him, grown up watching him coach different types of players, different teams, different situations, different dynamics. One thing that I always, it was the only way I saw someone coach, but was his ability to look at a guy for who he was, just kind of like what you're saying, Troy. Like, okay, he is at his best when he's protected in the pocket, and that's where he's going to make the best. We don't want him to have to run around like that. This is not going to work if this guy is running around, whoever it might be. I won't name any names. But it's like, then it's building that offense, that system around that skill set, and then putting the weapons in place. And so I think that's something that I always saw him do. And I just, that can be related to life in general. Like, even when I go and work on a TV or film set, like, it's looking at everyone's strengths and embracing those strengths and not expecting them to be somebody they're not, because you're just going to keep hitting a brick wall doing that. But it's interesting to me because then I talk to my brother, Scott, and we've, talked to him, and he's obviously worked with different coaches and different staffs, and not everybody coaches that way. There are coaches that come in and say, this is what we're going to run, and this is what I need you to do. And, it's a different mentality, but just talking about, that, like talking about a guy like Caleb Williams, who's getting a new coach coming in, who's thought of as Ben Johnson, one of the, league's foremost offensive minds, thinkers. And that's an adjustment period, right? And like, talk a little bit about that, and just
the thing I think, I'm not even going to say young coaches. I think coaches, the biggest mistake they make is they try to do too much before they get good at the things they should be working on. And you watch these games, everyone wants to be multiple. They want to have so many plays of no backs in the backfield, empty, as you call it. They want to, in the coaching, they want to be dynamic. And John Robinson used to say to me, I say, the guy was running wide open. We just missed him. He goes, yeah, well, no one cares. It was an incomplete pass. If we're not good at it, I don't want to run it. If we can't throw and catch it, I don't want to run that play. Find something we can complete. And that's kind of when I watch some of these games, these young quarterbacks, I mean, they got volume and they got a lot they're trying to get done. And then you get behind and you're trying to do a lot, and it really, you really get exposed. I think one of the things that has spurred this conversation on is a guy like Sam Darnold, who was with the Jets and obviously was on a bad team and really struggled. Went to Carolina, wasn't a good team and really struggled. Gets the opportunity, spends a year in San Francisco to kind of recover from all that, and then goes to Minnesota and really plays well. And is it the coaching? Is what Sam Darnold had to go through to get to that point? Does he appreciate it more? Does he understand better? Is it coaching? Is it his approach to it? I think some of that we'll find out. He's going to Seattle, and now he's got to start over again. He's got the new system, new coaches, new people around him. I think we'll find out about him, and like I said, I think it's always part coaching, part how the player approaches it. I think Sam's in great position to be successful, but he's not going to be on nearly as talented a team, particularly talented offense. So it'll put more pressure on him. It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, it's all those things. If you're one of these quarterbacks, there's a lot of quarterbacks I've said forever that have gone to places that have left the game and they've been regarded as a bust. But had they have been given the opportunity to come to Dallas and work with a guy like Norv, or if they had gone to San Francisco and their system, the Bill Walsh offense and the West Coast, and there's a lot of guys that put in those same situations, they would have success. So for Sam, I agree with that, Norv, that it's a hard position to play, and there's lumps along the way, and you kind of got to get hardened a little bit, and he certainly did at his early stops. And then he got with a guy in Kevin O'Connell that really understands the position, had good players around him, and he thrived. And if you're one of those that gets to go to Minnesota, that's why I'm excited to see J.J. McCarthy now that he's going to get a chance to play. I think he'll do really well. Probably not playing last year in the long run is going to serve him well, even though he had the serious injury. And I'm a big Brock Purdy fan, so I understand the offense. I love Kyle Shanahan and what he does, but you still got to make the throws. Just like Joe Montana, he had good players around him and a good system, but you still got to make those throws under pressure. And he did it really well. And so I don't take away from those guys. But if you're fortunate enough to get in a good situation, boy, you got a real chance to have success.
Yeah.
And maybe you mentioned Caleb Williams. Maybe that'll be the case for him this year. Rookie year's hard. Took a lot of sacks. I took a lot of sacks my rookie year. They've upgraded the offensive line. I do like Ben Johnson. I think they'll take some pressure off him with a running game. I would expect his season to look much different than it did as a rookie.
You mentioned college football. I kind of have a theory about some of these guys that come out of the total spread. SC is doing it, obviously. Lincoln Riley did it at Oklahoma. You're talking about guys who were playing in the league that came out of it. And Baker Mayfield comes to my mind. That it's taken these guys 3 or 4 years or a couple stops or some struggles to buy into this isn't, I'm not playing at Oklahoma anymore. I'm not playing at USC. I'm not playing that style of offense. This is the NFL. They're shorter games. You can go 3 and out and not get the ball back for 8 minutes, and then the first quarter's over. And then the games are all a lot closer. So how you handle, to me, 2 minutes at the end of the half is a big one, but how you handle that last 4 minutes of the game, ahead or behind, and the plays you make in that period end up deciding the games. And some of these guys have only played in 4 or 5 games like that in their career. Probably the guys that go on to play in the NCAA tournament, get to go play in the national championship game. Those games tend to be more like an NFL game, but there's a lot of games where it's the second quarter and you're up 35-7. There's not a lot of pressure on those guys to handle those situations. And like I say, you go 3 and out. Oh, we're going to get the ball right back. Let's go. But in the NFL, that changes a lot. And that's where I think Mahomes has made so much progress. I was so impressed last year what he did. They weren't as good on offense, but he didn't make the kind of mistakes that cost them games. They played great defense. He played to the defense. I thought he really matured in how he played.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. They were not as good, and yet he and they found ways to win, and totally agree. That's probably the biggest change from when I played is these games. I mean, they really, as Norv knows, he's been coaching, up until just recently. They come down to the last 4 minutes, and who handles those situations. These games are all so tight.
Yeah.
Coming down the wire.
Okay, let's move through some of the other quarterback situations. We have the Giants. Let's look at the Giants. They've got 3 guys now: Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, and now Jackson Dart. What do you think is going to happen there? Do you think they kind of already have an idea? I guess have they said publicly, right? It's going to be Russell Wilson, but
it sounds like Russell's going to be the guy going into the year. I've enjoyed watching Jameis Winston and his career and what he's done. He keeps it entertaining for sure, and he will there in New York. He's a great leader. His teammates love playing for him. And for Russell, it's third team in 3 years. I mean, he's bouncing around and it's a tough situation, I think, because that coaching staff, they got to do it this year. They're likely not going to be back. And so does that factor into the decision not to maybe start Jackson Dart? And a lot can happen. In Dallas, they had Tony Romo and then they draft Dak Prescott in the 4th round, and Dak ends up starting the opener because of injury. So it's not a foregone conclusion that Russell's going to be the guy, although that's what it looks like. But I like what I've seen of Jackson Dart. I've been following his career because I tried recruiting him to UCLA before he decided to go to USC, and have enjoyed watching him. But it's a strange, and Norv can speak to this more than I can. It becomes a strange thing because you're making decisions to try to keep your job, knowing you got to win. And when do you make those changes and all that goes into that? There's a lot that goes into that. But when you're a head coach who has to win now, I think you look at it a little differently than if you're Ben Johnson. If Ben Johnson was coaching the Giants, then you do have a little bit. You can be a little more patient. You can build the thing methodically. So what that looks like in New York, we'll see. I really don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful that they're good. I put the Giants in that same boat as the 49ers, the Cowboys. See, there's the flagship organizations. I just think the league's more compelling when they're good. It's been a long time since the Giants have been good, so I'm ready for them to start playing well.
Yeah.
I think the Giants have upgraded the talent around it, but I'm going to quote your good friend and my good friend, John Madden, who I've heard him say this many times. I think he was saying it about a couple of the teams I coached later on after I left you. If you have 2 or 3 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. And I feel for the Giants because I know what they're trying to do. But I just think it's hard to manage all that. And you know how I feel about it. Your starting quarterback gets all the reps. I mean, once you get out of training camp, your starting quarterback gets all the reps, and the backup has to learn by watching tape and, motivating himself to learn and get the individual work that you get. So, how they decide to handle that will have a lot of effect on how their team is. But I think it's really a tough situation. Like you said, it's a tough situation to handle.
Yeah, you talk about going into training camp and dividing up those reps and who's getting. I mean, if you have 3 guys and you're evaluating all of them, right? I mean that's where you get into a tough situation.
Well, we're talking about situations. You go out and training camp, and you've practiced 2 or 3 days, and now you have a big day. It's going to be red zone, and you get 18 plays in the red zone. Well, you got 3 quarterbacks. I mean, are you better off with one guy getting 14 of the reps and someone else getting 4, or you divide them up 6 each guy, and pretty soon you've got plays that the guy who ultimately is going to be the starter never gets to run in practice. So It's just you really have to be organized and handle it and understand what you're trying to accomplish. One of my pet peeves, I'm surprised I haven't said this yet. I know you are in agreement when it gets to practice. I've been to a bunch of practices since I retired, and I just don't see the urgency in terms of route running, the connection, the quarterback and the receiver. One of the things we're talking about offensive coaches, they rely so much more on scheme now rather than guy going out and beating a guy. And you need both. You need the scheme. Scheme helps get people open, but the ability to go out and take a drop and throw the ball and have the guy run a great route and beat a corner, that's a little bit of a lost art right now in the NFL. I think everyone's so enamored being empty, being in different trick formation type things. And
is that like outsmarting? Like they're about outsmarting someone rather than just like beating a guy on a route?
You need it, but so much emphasis on it. I don't know that young guys get the fundamental work they need.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's why, and you've heard me talk about it before, it's why I've enjoyed watching the 49ers so much. I mean, it's really more of an old school offense, very similar to what we did. So I'm biased because of it, but yeah, Norv's right that you don't see the technicians running routes the way that you once did. And when I do, I'm a tough critic. The audience probably knows that when I cover a ball game, but I'm tough on receivers. I hold them to a high standard as far as what I want to see. And the 49ers do it. They coach it and do it as well as anyone. And that tree, that lineage of Kyle Shanahan. I think McVay's receivers. There was a time back with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and that group. Boy, they were fun to watch, and we see it a little bit in Green Bay as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's where you see it is the teams that end up winning their division and going into the playoffs. The top 10, 12 teams, you put Detroit in there. Washington does it a little differently, but they certainly emphasize the run, the balance. Buffalo. I mean, in Kansas City, Mahomes gets the credit because when you watch the highlights, he's on the run, throwing one up over the top. But with Andy, I mean, they're really well coached in the passing game. Their receivers are extremely disciplined. The quarterback knows how to get the ball out on time. And then the added deal is when he scrambles, he knows where Travis is, and he's he's exceptional at that. But you look at the teams that are playing in January, and they're physical in the running game, and they do have a pretty good passing game that's based on sound fundamentals.
Sometimes I like cringe a little bit watching Hard Knocks because I feel like I see the awareness of the guys on it being something for the camera. Like I feel like it becomes a performative thing.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It has to, because there's cameras everywhere to go.
And they're too aware of it.
Everybody's a little different when they know they're on camera. So.
Right.
Yeah, and guys try not to be. But my first lesson in that was John Robinson. We were playing the Chargers in preseason, and Coach Robinson first coached at Oregon and coached Fouts, and I was one of the backups. And was there, and we're all really good friends. And it's about midway through the first quarter, and Dan and Coach Robinson are just back and forth at each other and playfully, but, throwing barbs at each other. And I'm going, this doesn't seem like either of these guys. And it continued and it kept going. And I go, these son of a guns, they're both mic'd up. I got to listen to this. I hope to hurry up and get Dan out of here.
Yeah. Well, you can always tell back in NFL films, you always knew the guys that were mic'd because they were the ones who were talking the whole time.
Exactly. Who wouldn't shut up, who kept chiming in. But I always remember the NFL films, like, back in the day before they were miking everybody all the time, that when they would mic my dad, like pregame or whatever, there would be certain conversations that you wouldn't want them to air or to record.
Right.
And so he would just be like, F-bomb this mother. and then the NFL film guy after would be like, thanks a lot, Norv. We can't use any of that. And he's like, yeah, I know, because I didn't want you recording me talking to the quarterback or whatever. Like, that was the way it ran. Now they probably would just air it on Netflix or something and not care.
Beep, bleep, 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 bleep.
So I'm just curious, like, different memories, or if there's a game memory or something that either of you have. I will share my Super Bowl memory, which, Troy, I don't know if you remember this, but I mean, we went to both Super Bowls, but the Super Bowl in Atlanta, I remember that was, and I was 9, which is my daughter's age now, which is crazy. But I remember being in pregame and the warm up and all of the, pomp and circumstance. And I remember crying my first tears of joy at 9 years old, because it was like a Mariah Carey hero playing, and they were showing some sort of highlight reel of the season, and you guys were doing your warm-ups, and it was like just this closeness of like, oh my God, like we're a part of this, and this was like such a special thing. And then I remember when you guys won, and I think you had come down from the press box and you brought us down onto the field, and confetti and everyone's running on the field and all the families and the players. And Troy, I remember you picked me up and you gave me your wristbands that you had worn. And it was just this like such a special moment, and a memory, like a core memory that I have of, childhood and football, and what an amazing thing to be a part of and to be close to all of you during that time. But yeah, what are your
there's a lot of different games, but the one that always I come back to is we were playing the New York Giants, and they'd won the Super Bowl the year before, and they were still one of the elite defenses. They'd had a coaching change. Their offense wasn't nearly as good. Hostetler was playing quarterback at that time, but we got the ball with 3 minutes, something like that. I don't the details, but we were down by. We're down by 2 points, and we got the ball on like our own 15-yard line, and we went right down the field. I think Troy completed 7 or 8 straight balls, and we had a 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 7 on the inside, like the 18, 20-yard line. And, I think people expect us to run it and get a field goal and go up, and that's not really the way we played, and that's not the way Coach Johnson coached or wanted to play. And on 2nd and 7 or whatever it was, Troy dropped back. They ran a max blitz, and Troy hit Michael Irvin on a post, and kind of our trademark route back then. Maybe that's why I don't think people work on routes enough. But he hit Mike, and Mike broke a tackle and fell into the end zone. And New York took the ball, and they took it right down the field, but they needed a touchdown, and they ran out of time. Had we kicked a field goal, things may have ended up different. But that game, to me, a win like that, you learn how to win. And our team responded to that win. And I think those type of things are games you build on. And when you got a young team like we were, that was really a big game to me.
Yeah, those, I will say that a lot of what you remember, Stephanie, about the fun times, even though I continued to play for the Cowboys, a lot of those fun times ended about the time your family moved to Washington. So, but it was, I look back, it was obviously in my professional life, it's as good as it ever has been. And Norv has said it, Jimmy has said it, Dave Wanstead, a number of coaches who were on were coaching on that staff, that they coached a long time afterwards. And what we had was unique. And I think that maybe for the people that, whether it's Jerry Jones or Jimmy Johnson, it happened so early in their time in the NFL that they probably didn't appreciate it as much as someone like Norv did, who had been in the NFL already. And maybe I'm in that category as well. Maybe I didn't appreciate it as much either. But I know in talking with coaches who were on that team, they coached a long time after, and you can't replicate it. So I'm really thankful that I had the opportunity to be a part of those years and win. I can't imagine, quite honestly, I can't imagine being a player in this league, and there's a lot of them who have really contributed to the success and the history of the success of the sport. And their stories have to be told when you tell the history of the NFL, that haven't experienced what it feels like to walk off the field as a Super Bowl champion, or maybe even never even played in a Super Bowl. And I can't imagine. I really cannot imagine that, because there was a time when if you won the Super Bowl, then the following year you were more inclined not to have a very good season, which I never quite understood, because once you win the Super Bowl, I can't, it's so euphoric, why you wouldn't just empty your bucket again to try to make it all happen all over again, because it is the pinnacle of our sport, and it's an adrenaline rush unlike anything else that I've ever experienced. So what you felt that night is what I felt in all of them. And you mentioned there was it wasn't Mariah Carey, but it was I'm drawing a blank. The woman who won Miss America that was also a singer.
Vanessa Williams.
Vanessa Williams. Yeah. She had a song.
Oh yeah.
And it was playing our last Super Bowl when we played in Arizona, and I was I was warming up. I was kind of stretching, and the song comes on, and I almost teared up. I had all this emotion and how special that was. And I still believe that, that ended up being our last Super Bowl. I thought I'd go to a few more before my career was over, but it ended up being my last. But name of the song might be "Save the Best for Last," which now is appropriate. But it was phenomenal. I'll never forget what that felt like.
It really did look hard at the Monday night schedule, and I think they took care of you guys. You have a good schedule.
We watch you every week, and sometimes if I'm with my dad, I notice he's like, "Oh, I got to text Troy about this."
Oh yeah,
and I'm like, "Dad, he's working. Like, why are you texting me?" Like,
I check it.
He's like, "Yeah, it's fine." He looks at it. It's fine. Yeah. It's fine. I'm like, "What?" The guy's trying to do a broadcast. Like,
no, keep it coming.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so good to see you.
You're welcome. All right, y'all take care.
Okay.
Safe drive back,
Norv.
Thanks.
Well, that's all we have for today. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.